Hello everyone. This is not a story for the faint of heart. Today, we will be stepping into the darkness of the most gruesome cases, where evil not only exists, but also leaves bloody and haunting traces. This is Real Gruesome Murder Cases, a series of true stories about murders that made the whole world shudder. If you are ready to face the cold truth in the gruesome corners of humanity, come with me to delve deeper into each case. Fall of the Stars. The heavens glittered with stars as the man silently drove over dirt and gravel. The 1,000 twinkling eyes mocking his desperation, muttering a curse under his breath. He slowed down at the rusty security gate at the entrance of the abandoned mines. To an ordinary person, it would be a half-broken gate with just a couple of night guards sleeping their shift away. But then again, the average person wouldn't notice that the old equipment was strewn about almost too cleanly, or that the uniformed guards lacked an identity or a logo, or how a cold eye glinted from under the angled cap. A sleek gun pointed at any approaching vehicle. Private security. Good. He smiled. He'd expected nothing less. He rolled down a window and casually brought up his right hand to scratch his stubble, flashing them the tattoo on his arm. One of guards came over to inspect it, shining a flashlight right in his face. Satisfied, he nodded to the other one, and the gate opened. The newcomer growled at them as he drove past. The guards didn't blink. He took the car to the mouth of the mines and parked it aside a vintage piece, tossing the keys inside when he got out. Won't be getting out in this ride, that's for sure. He took one last look at the night sky. The stars still winked at him. I'll show you, you damned twinklers, he thought. And then you and your glowing arses can collectively burn the fuck out. He walked in and took the narrow elevator down, fixing a crick in his neck to look at the small black camera from the corner of his eye. The caged door opened into a tunnel entrance sealed long ago. Dim light and vulgar music blared from within. The tunnel widened into a narrow hall within, a despicable den of sin. Sellers had set up their wooden stalls on either side, sporting wares of all kinds, and catering to the needs of anyone bold or foolish enough to venture within. A place fit for the lowest of low-life scum, the kind who'd kill their own mothers for the right price. Everything in the hall was as good as Eden's forbidden fruit on earth, attracting a number of fools who'd end up unconscious in dirty alleys, pickpocketed at best, missing an organ or an appendage, if not sporting a slit throat at worst. The market and its dealers had been thriving in the sealed mine for almost a decade now, and he had no doubt that even the poorest of these merchants could have half the law enforcement in their pockets. He grunted. Hell, half the buying and betting crowd out here was law enforcement. Drugs, flesh, poison, weapons. They themselves would know where best to find any product being sold in the dark hall. The man sighed and jammed a hand in his pocket, pulling out a pack of gum. He looked it over with a frown and popped one in his mouth, tossing the rest in a makeshift stall with a wink at the seller. Let him pore over hours, wondering what's so special about it. He allowed the thought to bring him a dry chuckle, visibly relaxed now. He cleared his thoughts and covered the tattoo on his arm, lest it be discovered by someone who carried one of its counterparts. He'd thought about this evening too much to spend it in a petty black market fight, ignoring the purrs of a woman offering him the finest opium and a merchant sporting priceless stolen jewels. He made his way to the guarded room on the other end, where once again a discreet flash of his ink admitted him within. A flash of white greeted him on the other side. White tiles decked the room, save for the ceiling, which held a long mirror across the length of it. Across the table from him sat a red-faced man in a puff of smoke, cigar in one hand and a wicked blade in the other. A host of monitors beside him. Eye of the market. He leaned forward with his mouth split in a grin. Rivulets of sweat running down his temple into his short-cropped white hair. Welcome, my friend. Mr. Rasut, I presume? I'm Gvadiskvi. We spoke via our mutual contact, who sadly passed away today. He took his visitor's hand, shaking it and nodding. Tragic, really, but you know how it is. I was hoping you'd stop by this week. Give us a chance to talk in person. Yes, a conversation has been long due. The man called Rasut replied, pulling his hand back. He remained standing. Now, my friend, we are friends, yes? I would offer you a cigar, but unfortunately, I do not yet know if you are a friend. Let's save the cigar for later, then. A question for now. I heard from our friend Rihaka you were taking an interest in the pits. You ask many questions, my friend. I must know now, because I dislike having to answer so many questions. Do you intend to partake in any way at all? Place a few bets, maybe indulge yourself in a match. Perhaps you'd like me to fix one for you, if only you're first to get you a little start. Say so. And we have a deal. I don't want to place bets, Gvadiskvi. His host's eyes narrowed, his smile faltering. Then you will understand. There are steps to be taken. We must be cautious about our little venture. You misunderstand, friend. He spat with a smile of his own. I wish to fight in the pits. The red-faced man barked a laugh, hurling his cigar across the room. Well then, my friend, we must drink to that, he shouted. I knew I liked you the moment you walked in. He poured out a strange green liquor in glass mugs kept behind his desk. Come, Mr. Rasut, we drink to victory. to living forever and battering one's enemies to death. The man called Rasut raked a hand through his dusty hair, clenching his fist at the drawn-out conversation. I do not drink before a fight. I will, however, take a whiff of your finest snow. Aye, it is a cold night, Mr. Rasut, and you are a bold one. He sniggered. My new friend, a man of taste. The man called Gvadiskvi obliged, immediately sending for his finest of the drug. He invited his guest to sit across him and talk. Come then, tell me. He grinned. What brings you here? Rasut tilted his head, starting. He was cut off. Please, do not insult my intelligence. I'm curious. The other man leaned forward. I truly am. Why would a man like you resort to this? He stared across the table, icily. You don't know me. Don't pretend to. But surely someone such as you would have noticed the shadows trailing you, yes? A giggle. They've been watching you. The way you walk, the way you talk, the much concealed desperation in your eyes. Maybe I have a death wish. But that's not the half of it, my dear Mr. Rasut, is it? His watery eyes gleamed, sending a shiver of revulsion down the addressed man's spine. Having a death wish doesn't have to be personal, he said quietly. Oh, but coming here always is. His drug came, and he consumed it, courtesy of the house. He rolled his neck, grasping at his colliding thoughts and the clarity he now had. He pulled out the battered old pocket watch. A half hour still remained before he'd fight. The man called Rasut suddenly realized that he was talking and stopped, visibly shaken. He found himself staring across at his half-witless host, who beseeched him to continue. You were at the bit where you had the epiphany after giving up your old ways, when the fighting was over. Go on then. He considered for a moment, then shrugged. No harm done. Screw it. It wouldn't matter after tonight, anyway. When it struck me, he spoke through the piece of gum still in his mouth. How much the stars and I are alike. Gvadiskvi hummed in appreciation. How poetic for a man of your bearing. But do tell, how so? It's silly, really, but also true. He snorted a scoff, waving his hand airily. When they die, it's got to be a cosmic carnage, or no one knows cares, because otherwise no one would know when they die. The other man spoke through a puff of smoke as he lit another cigar. Much like battle veterans and mercenaries such as yourself, eh? Yes, and the natural way is too mundane. He tasted the word on his tongue and how morbid it felt. So, I thought, why not die in a carnage and make people care? Care? Gvadiskvi went silent for a long moment. Do you truthfully think the people Enough to place bets, anyway. he retorted. The elder man undid a button on his shirt, rolling back his shoulders. Fair enough. You want to bring business to me. Who am I to refuse? My violent friend. A bolt of lightning went up his spine, and Rasut tilted his head. His host noticed it. Oh, come on. I've been running the pits for 9 years now. How many of your kind do you think I've seen? He huffed a laugh, thick smoke momentarily covering his face. I lost the count from not caring, Mr. Rasut, if I ever was honest. And you're simply another face in that pile. Men like you only like violence. Do you know why? He looked at him, very still, because it's the easiest thing to do. He continued, twirling the knife in his hand. So you go about your life, with violence as your creed, until suddenly, one day, you realize that you're all alone. So, what do you do? He said nothing, as the eyes across his bore into his own, with a cruel smile. You turn on yourself, becoming violent to life itself, hating your existence, and desperate for the bittersweet mercy the idea of death offers. Gwadiskvi looked into his eyes. And so, you turn to men like me. Like I said, Mr. Rasut, I recognize people like you. I think you'll find some kindred spirits in here this evening. Try to be merciful to them a little. He finished with a twinkle in his eyes, feeling uncomfortably vulnerable. He rode on a surge of blood and vaulted over the table in a blur, grabbing Gwadiskvi to whirl behind him, the knife now in his hand, and held to his host. If you claim to know my motivations so well, then tell me, friend, he spat. Why don't I be a gentleman and grant you some mercy right now? The Mar laughed softly, feeling his own blade digging into his throat. I am trying to be polite, Mr. Rasut. But if you move that knife 1 inch closer to me, I will rip your heart out. Besides, we both know that you'd rather put on an impressive display. If you are so adamant on dying. Rasut released him, taking a step back. The pits are crowded tonight, Gwadiskvi remarked, with the eyes of a predator. Our old friend Rihak picked you a good night to fight. The fighting pits had been emptied, and a large area cleared for the closing event of the night. It was sparsely decorated, a handful of oil drums scattered to provide cover, and a few low-hanging bulbs as the only source of light in the wide hall. The crowd was brimming with nervous energy, with people shoving each other for the best spot to view the last fight without falling inside. Rules of the arena were clear. A single step in and you were fair game. The audience silently parted as its supreme benefactor glided through. Aitanpar Gwadiskvi, the man who ran the pits, and every piece of low-life scum that haunted the mines. He raised his arm, holding a glass of exquisite liquor. And the world fell silent. "Greetings, children of the pits," he boomed. "I have a special night in store for you. The matches till now have offered but a slice of the excitement to come." He looked at those who would fight now, spotting them in the audience. No life is better than half a life. Tonight, the 6 individuals gathered in the arena share more than blood brothers do in a lifetime. They share this thought and are willing to fight to the death to prove it. They are the superior people amongst us, for these men and women have looked into the eyes of desire and stared it down. Riches or luxury, a good, quiet life, that's too much to ask of them. They live for the combat, and for the combat they willingly die. Most of them, anyway. He trailed off. The crowd cheered. The man nodded and continued. "We are graced with our weapons master, Mr. Black, offering us the chance to witness his latest wares in action." The crowd went wild. Shrieks and whoops filling the air as the said man joined Gvadiskvi, completely decked in black, only parts of his face not covered by his wide-brimmed hat, or sunglasses visible as his lip burst in a cheery laugh. He waved. "Tonight, I bring to you," he started in a deep voice as the crowd went silent, "the only functioning prototypes of my latest gun, a tranquilizer coated with poison from deadly toads, and from my herb garden, highly flammable, although one wouldn't need fire for them to do their job. A slight graze could end a grizzly's life, to say nothing of our own. Up for auction next week." Murmurs streaked across the room as Gvadiskvi continued. "To make it more of a challenge, each of the fighters are equipped with a gun, good for 2 shots. No other weapons. Look closely, for if you blink, you may miss it. But mind your eyes. He. At a signal, 6 figures stepped in the cleared area. A lithe figure prowled in, carefully eyeing her opponents. The woman had a vicious smile plastered on her face, tracing a finger up her leather-like body armor. "My new guns will go well with the gear." The other woman grunted and flicked her the finger. A thin man slicked a tongue over his teeth, filed into sharp fangs. "We'll see about that, doll." 2 other men staggered inside, either drunk or badly beaten up recently. Rasut was handed his gun as he weighed his options. Oil drums for cover, low-hanging light bulbs, a stale piece of gum in his mouth, and a gun with 2 rounds of poison within. He nodded, taking a deep breath. "In mortality lies my victory. In victory, a worthy death. Till my last breath, the carnage will not stop." He looked up in front of him. The carnage must stop. Tonight, then, death is life. A bell rang without warning, and the crowd roared as slivers of crimson flew all around, spraying up a shower of blood where they struck. He moved in a flash, ducking past a couple of darts and backhanding a light bulb. Those nearest to him flinched, momentarily blinded. Those two died first. He shimmied up behind the loud-mouthed girl with the protective gear, swiftly shooting at the unbalanced man across the room. He was dead before he fell, the dart buried in his eye. Grabbing her by the hair, he smashed her nose on the oil drum, and she cried out, instinctively raising a hand to her face. He snaked a hand into the side of her neck and snapped, snatching the gun out of her hands even as her body fell. He ducked as a barrage of darts flew past him. Pressing his back against a drum, Rasut peeked to find the other drunk or injured man already dead, while the man with the razor-sharp teeth wrestled with the bulky woman. Their guns tossed a few feet away. So much for that momentary truce. He spied the light bulb near him, still swinging. He grabbed it with one hand, pulling out the chewing gum with the other, and sticking it on the bulb, recoiling when the hot glass burned his finger. At least this will go quicker than I anticipated, he thought as the glowing bulb twinkled like the stars outside. Damned twinkler. He moved quickly, moving behind another oil drum, as he fired twice at the one directly beneath the bulb, then tossed the dead girl's now empty gun at it for good measure. A thin spray or oil spurted from it, steadily growing into a tiny fountain, leaking oil that quickly spread across the floor. This caught the attention of the woman, who had finished crushing the throat of the thin man and pummeling him to death with her fists. She grinned, going for the two guns at her feet even as he leaped, and the world froze. In that moment, Rasut saw everything. The horror on Gvadiskvi's face, the victory on the woman's, the final moments of the mine as he shot at the light bulb which burst apart, flames engulfing the oil, and boom! The next day, all the papers talked about the mine blow up. A gas explosion, they called it. The official report said that no one was around when it happened. No one got hurt. The cleanup crew moved quickly, doing multiple sweeps and gathering what they found before loading the bodies in a truck to be taken away and incinerated. Yet no one noticed a single hand twitching still of the dead man who would still live, outliving his own carnage. No one noticed the mouth speak obscenities in broken whispers, cursing at himself, at the stars, and at life itself. Pretty, yet deadly. The warmth of it all was intoxicating. Her heartbeat went crazy as the blood was trickling down her face, onto her chin, and down onto the marble floor. Why did this feel so good? Why was this easier and easier? Addicting. The crowd cheering made her feel the world spinning around her, like that one time she tried drugs. Would this be just as hard to give up on like the drugs as well? The constant craving for that feeling, but not the aftermath. She wondered what the aftermath would feel like. But for now, there were still 4 more people she needed to worry about before she could think of tomorrow's reality. Standing over the corpse, Alex just now noticed the gruesomeness of what she did. This was a hate fight as well. All that mocking in the back rooms, all those invasive touches and stares that made her feel violated. Growling, she smacked her head with her foot, the crack of her bones making Alex almost gasp in pleasure. She was dead, and this was her punishment. Now her pretty white dress that Kira mocked her for was stained red with her blood. A strap was ripped, but she didn't care. The pretty girl won. Turning towards the crowd, her eyes were sparkling with adrenaline, euphoria taking over her as she smiled bright and bowed before skipping off the stage. This wasn't the contest she signed up for, but it was the contest she was going to win, no matter what. "Good job, Sunshine," Damien muttered as she passed by him, smirking. "Thank you, kind sir. See you in the finals." With a wink, she passed him. She knew he was going to win the next fight, so that made the 2 of them. Going back to her changing room, people were already waiting for her, ready to clean her up, prep her hair, and change her dress. But the blood was going to stay untouched, just like any other small wounds. It was their medal to go in the next round. Alex wasn't used to any of this, especially this type of medals that showed their passing. Usually, it would be a pin or some tacky golden star. This was nothing she prepared herself for, and from the introduction, no one was specifically prepared for it. If they had the luck in their life to get in any physical altercation and win, that was a plus. It all started with some pretty faces, nice bodies, and preppy clothes. But this was so much more now that she was so deep into it, as she left herself in the hands of the people in the room to take off her clothes and take care of her. She couldn't help but wonder how she came this far, how she started to enjoy that gruesome stage that was now bathed in blood, the lights all over them, the masked crowd enjoying every second of it. 2 hours ago, there were 20 people. Now there were only 3. Her long red dress with a slit down from her thigh, down, low cut, both back and the front, was long gone. Alex loved that dress, and she loved how it showed off her curves and long legs. But now it was long destroyed. Glancing over to the side of the room, on a rack, there laid all her torn-up dresses that she wore since all started. Whoever won was going to have their battle clothes sold. A token of this contest. The money going towards the winner. The thought of people buying ripped up and bloodied clothes made her wonder why people would spend money on such things. But she soon realized why. All those dresses were now tied to a battle, to a crime, and success at staying alive, being the hunter, not the prey. A token from the battles, and a piece of the contest itself. They were still calling it a contest, not just a fight until death. If they wanted help in the last round, they needed to win the hearts of the crowd, voting each round on who would win, and then at the end of each fight, keeping scores. It was a system from 1 to 5. They revealed what would happen at the end. The one that got the highest rating would mean they are the public's favorite, which would bring its benefits. Not sure of what that meant. They knew it must be something good, so they needed to put on their best face, even as they killed brutally. Some of them sadly forgot this was a contest in the end, and the votes counted. So Bruce ignored it. He thought only of the end goal, killing everyone in order to survive. The crowd wanted foreplay. They wanted dirty fights, but with fair chances. The girls never fought against the boys, not until the finale round. They wanted the thrill of a long, bloody fight, hearing them growl and cuss with each new wound, with each new bruise and cut, seeing them fight for their lives, seeing the growing desperation as one of them realized this could have been the end, and tough decisions were going to be taken. Bruce wasn't aware of it, and snapped the opponent's neck in a matter of seconds. He saw a weak point and took it, finishing it all without giving the crowd what they wanted. The silence after that was morbid. No reaction from anyone, just Bruce in the middle of the scene, arms spread, wanting to challenge the world itself, feeling invulnerable. What he didn't know was that no one liked that, and they were ready to challenge him back. Red buttons lit all over the room. Alex could swear that she saw those red lights flicker inside the crowd's eyes, thirsting for the blood they didn't get. He got one from everyone. If just one person would have given him another score, he could have survived. But those were not the rules. Tied up, every participant still alive was meant to wound him, not fatal, but in an appealing way that would make the crowd tremble in pleasure. That, or they would join his faith. Whoever had the highest score in that round would get the best prop for the next round. Kira won it by being her slutty self, yet she still died. Looking at the dried blood under her nails, the image of her nails dragging down on Kira's face made her shiver. What did she become? From the first round lamb She now became a cheetah. She was fast and agile, thanks to the years of gymnastic her mom forced her into taking when she was 6. It was now paying off. What would her mother think of seeing her like this? Knowing her little baby killed and killed and killed? Maybe she didn't have to know. All was good. She was alive, and she could be hugged by her mother away. A long, nice bath, washing away all the blood, and together with it, her sins. She would go to church. She would wear her most modest white dress and braid her hair like her mother did ages ago when they would go there. "You are good to go, princess." The woman smiled gently towards her, just like a grandmother. Kind eyes and deep wrinkles next to her eyes when she would smile. She looked so out of this picture, and yet she was the one that cleaned the blood off and nurtured her wounds. If she could look at her with this kindness, even after knowing and seeing all she did, her mother will as well. She loved her, her little angel. "This is suiting." Alex exhaled as she stared at herself in the mirror. An angel. Another white dress, long and flowy. A pair of wings and a sparkling tiara. The blood wasn't even bothering her. It looked like a second skin now, a piece of her, something that she shall never be able to wash, always seeing it stain her in the mirror. The next thing she knew was that she was back on the stage, face to face with Damien, dressed as the devil itself, black shirt and burgundy vest, shiny shoes and black pants, tiny red horns on his head. He was beautiful, she had to admit to herself once again. And if this was a normal contest, she could imagine herself at the end of it, with him at her side, arm around her waist, both winners, prizes in their hands. A pretty image. But there was going to be just one winner, and the prize would be their own lives, still being alive. "You look angelic." He laughed, his fingers gently tracing her face in the eyes of the crowd. Smiling, she placed her hand over his, keeping it on her cheek. So warm and gentle, making her insides wrestle inside of her. The thrill she felt as she won. But those long fingers were going to soon strangle her, digging deep into her, wanting her dead. "You look devilish yourself." She smiled as she placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat so close. She didn't want this. She wanted to be done with this bloodshed. But it was her or him. Getting close to him, their lips gently touching. She gasped as he kissed her back, his hand on her neck, pulling her closer. This was what the crowd wanted, right? A show. To see them suffer. For them to feel their pain while they weren't losing anything. A love story would make this so much better. A cliché. but it was a cliché because people enjoyed it, always watching it. Kissing harder, she moved her hand towards her wings, detaching one, grabbing tight. Before she left the dressing room, the show master brought her another pair of wings, congratulating her on her scores and her new prop. One glance towards the old lady, and she realized what it meant. She saw her assemble the wings, so now she did the opposite, cutting her hand on the blade, grabbing tight on it, and lifting her hand, she stabbed the wing deeply in the back of Damien, just as he used one of his horns, stabbing her in the back as well. Both collapsing on their knees, neither of them stopped the kiss, becoming just more intense as the crowd gasped. It was just a matter of time of who would bleed faster, who would turn cold. They were going to die in their own way, and they were going to wait. Murderer's delight, murderer's delight. Mistress Gale, as she was known, has developed a certain lifestyle that required her to invent methods to maintain it. The woman understood the importance of keeping a job, as she was taught by her elders, because she engaged in activities that she could not afford by legal means. Mistress Gale exploited other people to supplement her lifestyle. She would steal from the elderly people whose homes she worked at as a caregiver. When tragedy struck her family, she learned to offer her family members a place to live in her home in order to exploit them for their money. When her niece was misbehaving and her sister was not a good mother, Mistress Gale housed her in her home. The young girl's father paid the exploiter to let his daughter live with the Mistress of Darkness. Exploitation was something that she became an expert at due to her troubled childhood. As a young girl who was sexually abused by her father, Barbara learned early that she could get paid to keep her mouth shut. Since the adults in her life didn't believe the account that she gave the first time that her uncle exposed himself to her, she often would take the money that he offered her to keep quiet. The violence and sexual exploitations that was experienced by Gale forever changed her soul. She became angry, violent, and grew up with a darkness in her that no amount of light could change. When her parents would have alcohol in the home, Gale and her siblings would consume it as an escape from the trauma of living in an abusive home. By the time that she was 18, the antagonist had become an alcoholic. In November of 1980, the death of Lillian Adler, Gale's mother, contributed to her already damaged psyche. Her other siblings had also been abused by the patriarch of the Adler family. But Gale fooled herself into believing that she was the only one. Although one of her younger sisters had begged her not to leave her, and the youngest one alone with their father, 23-year-old could not feel any empathy for them. Even at the young age of 23, she already had lost her sense of compassion or mercy for others. Mistress Gale had become her abuser. She developed a God complex and told herself that the world owed her everything. This complex caused her to hate anyone who told her no. The downward spiral into madness made her become spiteful. Abuse and trauma, untreated, causes an individual to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. When a situation that is beyond the individual's control, the person feels a need to control others and whatever situation he or she is in at the moment. Mistress Gale loved to be in the company of violent men because she had developed a soul tie to them. Whenever other females came around, she would see them as a threat. She didn't have too many female friends. Loved to control other women, even in their own homes. On a cold winter's night, Mistress Gale found herself at the home of one of her male friends. The other people that were there were men only, and they were all drinking. Gale thought that she could trust her friend Eugene, but soon found out that was not the case. The men ended up gang raping her, and they paid Eugene to allow it to happen to Mistress Gale. This traumatic event was the final straw for her, and she soon became a psychopath. Mistress Gale had a brother who was what one could describe as a wimpy man. He was easy to influence and never wanted to be in control of his own life. Since they were raised in a dysfunctional home, Henry never developed a sense of self-worth. He wasn't taught how to be an independent man standing on his own feet. Henry learned to depend on his sister and the females in his family. They allowed him to live in their homes, cooked for him, paid his bills, and shopped for him whenever he needed clothing. This codependency was an opportunity to be exploited by Mistress Gale, his now psychopathic sister. January of 1991 came around, and Henry needed new clothes. He gave his sister money to purchase him a new wardrobe, wanting to keep some of the money for herself to maintain her alcohol addiction. Mistress Gale returned home with no receipt, verifying how much money she had actually spent on her brother's clothing. The only time that Henry would stand up for himself was when he was full of liquid courage. When the two siblings became engaged in an argument about the brother's change, it led to the sister going to the hospital via ambulance. While they were arguing, Mistress Gale didn't see the huge, empty bottle of liquor that her brother hit her with. Head injuries causes a change of an individual's personality. With all of the previous drama in her life, there was no way that the main character of this story could be a decent person again. She spent the rest of her life causing trouble and mayhem to anyone in her life. Although her brother was remorseful for what he had done to her, Gale used the injury that she sustained as a way to gain even more control of her brother. When others would attempt to hold her accountable for her actions, he would defend her. She continued to exploit any situation that she could, and when opportunity presented itself, she figured that she could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The father of the family retired after so many years of working as a farmer. He moved into a retirement building. Harry Adler was a man who couldn't control his own fleshly desires. Not only did he molest his own daughters, drink, and use drugs, he had a gambling monkey on his back. This lifestyle started to take effect on his health. He found himself with little mobility, kidney trouble, and high blood pressure. Deteriorating health didn't stop him from frequenting the gambling casinos of Louisiana. He learned how to utilize the bus system where he lived to get around. While he was engaging in his wobbling escapes, Harry also loved to dine on the buffets that the casinos offered to their patrons. The aging father of 7 ate something that didn't agree with the other toxins that were already in his body. He became ill and was rushed to the hospital in Texas. Although he had signed a "do not resuscitate" document in the event that he became ill, his troubled daughter saw this as an opportunity to get even with him and get money from his life insurance policy, enlisting the aid of her partner in crime. Gail developed a scheme to murder her father. When the doctors called the family into the hospital to inform them that it was not a high probability that their father would live, they made the decision to take him off of life support. As the family members went in to see their father for the last time, Leonard, his illegitimate son with his oldest daughter, came out of his room, claiming that something went wrong with his father while he was in the room with him. This turned out to be a lie, because he and Mistress Gail had decided to end his life in the event that he didn't die on his own. This attempt to get money was a waste of time, because he had left his daughter, Carmen, as beneficiary on his life insurance policy. The policy included just enough finances to give him a proper funeral and burial. Unable to prove that her father was murdered, Carmen started seeking God's justice for her father's murder. In 2016, Leonard started losing the use of his eyes and is slowly becoming blind. Mistress Gail has fallen down several times, down a flight of stairs, and is suffering with pain in her body every day. She is living in an environment with her daughter that she can't manipulate and has to submit to her rules. Murder in a dream. Halvar sat in his office, browsing the police file of suspects and cursing his brain for not remembering anything regarding the incident. The doctors told him the blow to his head was severe. It gave him a concussion, after all, and that it might take time for his memory to come back, if it did at all. Hall, without turning his eyes from the computer screen, he waved a hand. "Come in, Siegfried." His assistant walked into the office, placing a hand on Halvar's shoulder. "How are you? Still can't remember anything," he said, scanning the faces of every known criminal in Norway. He recognized a few of them, having captured them himself. But none rang a bell as to whom might have killed two of his friends and placed one in a coma. He's got to be here somewhere. Hall, you should rest, Siegfried said, placing a cup on his desk. Steam rose from it, spreading an invigorating scent of coffee. We are looking into every possible avenue. I have to regain my memory, he said, scrolling further. He had to. It was the only way. He must have seen the killer just before the hit on the head knocked him out cold. His mind held the only real evidence they had, the only evidence to help turn suspicion off of Halvar himself. Siegfried sighed and retracted her hand. We talked to Olaf, the studio owner, again. He said he left the place early that evening and didn't see anyone but you and your friends coming in. Nobody else was scheduled for practice either. The single security camera caught no one else entering the building. That camera's position is awkward, Halvar said, rubbing his eyes. He hadn't slept in a day. He didn't like what sleep brought. The killer could have entered through the back or by the window. Did Olaf tell you about his back door? How he's too cheap to have it repaired? Anyone could enter. In fact, could the man himself be responsible? He did complain often about the noise of Halvar and his band playing, even though they paid to rent his studio for practice. Hall, I can't imagine how hard this must be for you. I know how close you were with them, how much music meant to you. I hope that Bjarka makes it, and I hope you get some rest. Halvar sighed and listened to Siegfried's footsteps leaving the office. The cup of coffee rested on the desk, smelling heavenly. He turned to say thank you, but his assistant was gone. Instead, he noticed the pictures on the office walls, his formal detective license, a photo with the whole police department for Christmas 2 years ago, and a framed picture of him and his 3 friends playing live at a local festival. 2 of them were dead now. 1 in a coma. The result of some lunatic bursting into the studio and killing everybody. Halvar himself survived by sheer luck, it would seem. I'll find out who did this, he thought, turning back to the screen. And no law or moral code can save them from me when I do. He spent the rest of the night searching through the files, as well as his memory, both seemingly void of the information he sought. Eventually, sleep caught up with Halvar, and with it came the nightmare. Each night since the incident, he had been having roughly the same dream. It was almost as if his mind was trying to tell him through dreams what he couldn't remember consciously. Halvar got to relive the murder of his friends every night for the past 2 weeks. He got to see every bloody detail, but never the killer's face. That detail always eluded him, and with each dream, he thought he was getting closer to the truth. Each time, the nightmare would reveal a bit more of what happened. That was if his mind wasn't just making everything up out of trauma. In the dream, he was often in the killer's shoes, after all. But he could never see his face. This night, the dream started as usual. Right in the middle of it, and from the point of view of the killer. Halvar saw himself as the murderer, picking up his guitar and crushing his friend's head with it. They were in the middle of practice and were stunned at the sudden outburst of violence by the intruding killer. Before anyone could react, Halvar smashed the heads of all 3 of his band colleagues with his own guitar. Then the dream shifted, where he could see outside from himself. How he got hit on the head too, by a figure without a face. The prosecutor then ran away, and when Halvar wanted to follow, the figure disappeared into the shadows. Halvar woke up, sweating and breathing heavily. He looked around and noticed he had fallen asleep in his office. The place was dark, no light coming from the hallway. Everyone must have left already. He grabbed a pen and paper and wrote down everything he could remember from the dream, recording every detail. The drawer by his desk was filled with accounts from his dream, and he used them to correlate the event, searching for consistent patterns and hints. As incredible as it seemed, his dreams were the only clues he had, but he couldn't share them with his colleagues. They would never take it seriously. The killer used my guitar, Halvar murmured, comparing tonight's dream with the others. But the last thing I remember was playing on my guitar. Then, nothing. So, whoever did it, I must have trusted them to let them have my guitar. The evidence found at the crime scene clearly pointed at Halvar's guitar as the murder weapon. It had blood and tissue of all 4 of them on its body, all found on one side, suggesting that the killer used it as a club to repeatedly strike at each one. The guitar's body was solid steel and hard plastic, and it cracked under the brutal hits, but did not break apart, surprisingly. So the killer must have known how strong the instrument was, so he could perform precise strike with it and not have it break in the middle of his assault. That would create an opening for the others to defend themselves. The only person that Halvar would entrust his instrument to, and who would know so much about it, other than his band friends, was Olaf himself, the studio owner. Halvar even once took lessons from the man, who showed him a few tricks on the guitar from his heyday as a roadie. It wasn't rational to think that Bjarka would take the guitar, kill the other 2, attempt to kill Halvar, and then knock himself out. How would he do that? And it was just as absurd to think that Halvar himself did it, as was the unspoken suspicion. How would he swing the guitar at himself, knocking himself out with it? The angles didn't match, but the blood and the concussion did. Somebody else must have been present there that night. And the more Halvar thought about it, the more he suspected Olaf. The studio was his. He had access to the camera. The band knew and trusted him. He did complain about the noise, but was that reason enough to attempt a quadruple homicide? Or was there something else? A form of jealousy against Halvar and the band? Olaf did say that he never had a chance to be in a band, but that it was his greatest wish. Halvar checked the clock. It was something past 3 a.m. He considered, looking at the photo of him and his friends. Then he left his office. Olaf's house was next to his studio. It was part of the same building complex, just on the other side, so the owner had privacy, as well as quick access to the place. Halvar sat in his car, parked outside the man's house. There was a light turned on inside. Olaf was the one that found us, Halvar thought. He came into the studio and called the police. In the report, the man said he had heard shouts and how the music suddenly stopped. So he had gone to check. The more Halvar considered, the more sense it made. The man pretended to have stumbled upon the murder scene, to have an alibi. Halvar waited in his car, considering whether he should confront the man, considering if he could even do it. As he waited outside of Olaf's house, the pain in his head from the blow returned. Halvar took some painkillers and watched the window, wanting to catch Olaf in some act that would rat him out. In a whirlwind of thoughts and with a headache pounding, Halvar must have fallen in a pill-induced sleep, as suddenly his mind was back at the incident. This time, he saw more of it. "That sounds terrible, Hal," Bjarke said, grimacing on the drums. "Are you sure you can play the guitar, mate?" Halvar ignored the remark and focused on playing the solo. They were working on a new song, and it was a pain to get it right. "Sounds to me like he's butchering somebody," Damus, the bassist, commented. "Must be the stress at work, I reckon." They laughed. Typical guy talk. Halvar tried his best, but failed. His fingers were just too slow. The solo too technical and complex. His mind was sluggish, indeed from stress at work. There was a dangerous killer on the loose, and they had finally gotten a lead. Halvar just wanted to relax and let go for a few hours with his buddies. But all he could think of was the brutality of the recent murders. "Hey, we're going to get something to eat," Bjarke said. "You want something, Hal?" "No," Halvar said. "I'm good." He just wanted to get the damn solo right. "All right then," Bjarke said. "But don't you try and steal my roles when we come back." They left. Halvar kept practicing. Then Olaf entered the studio. "Hey, mate," the older man said, wearing his long gray hair in a tail. "Sound like you're having some trouble." "Yeah," Halvar said. "I can't do this transition here. It's too fast for me." Halvar showed what he meant by playing the part at half speed. Olaf nodded. "I see. Can I try?" "Sure," Halvar sighed. He handed the man his guitar. Knock yourself out. I'll knock you out with my veteran skill, the man said, and took the guitar. The dream then changed to Halvar being in the killer's shoes and butchering everybody, until seeing himself in third person again, being hit by some man with no face. Halvar ran after the man, and this time he caught him in a corner. The man had long hair. Halvar jolted awake. He was sitting in his car, parked outside of Olaf's home. The light in the house had turned off. It's him, he thought, breathing heavily. He did it. Halvar got out of the car and walked to the studio entrance. He had the key, as he and his friends were regulars. It was the little hours of the morning, and there was nobody outside, not even a stray dog. Halvar unlocked the door and removed the police tape, entering the crime scene. He knew that the studio and Olaf's house were connected by a passage for practicality. Halvar used the light on his phone to make his way through the dark interior. If it really was you, Olaf. Halvar hurried through the passage, entering the man's living quarters. He'd been there once or twice when Olaf invited them over for a drink, building his alibi, plotting even then. Halvar crossed the living room and climbed the stairs to the man's bedroom. He didn't think of what his plan was. He just wanted to have a look at the man, to see his murderous face. As he came to the bedroom, where he saw the light coming before, Halvar paused. He heard weeping from inside. His heart pounded like a drum, and he burst into the room. Feeling guilt for what you did, the man, lying under the blankets, jumped up in shock. Halvar turned on the light and noticed he had taken out his gun on instinct. Olaf gazed at him with wide eyes, red, as if from crying. "What? Don't deny it! You did it!" Halvar shouted, his hand trembling. "I saw you! It was you!" The man's face was twisted in a mixture of shock and fear. "What are you talking about? I saw you in my dream," Halvar said. "You took my guitar," and the man was crying. There were candles placed on his windowsill, alongside pictures of Halvar and his friends. The two that had been killed had a rosary around them. He was grieving? "What's all this?" Halvar asked, pointing at the pictures. "They were my friends too," Olaf said. "Your band reminded me of when I was young." His gaze focused on the gun in Halvar's hands. "You think I did it. It wasn't a question, but a statement. One in which Halvar wasn't so sure anymore. He looked into the man's eyes and saw sadness underneath all the shock and betrayal. "I can't prove it, Hall," Olaf said, sniffing. "But by God, I'm not the man you should be pointing that gun at." "Who then?" Halvar shouted. "Who did it? Who killed my friends and nearly killed me?" He pointed the gun at the man's head. Olaf began weeping. "The guitar was in your hands when I found you." "Yes, the killer wanted to confuse the forensics by framing one of us. No one else came or left the studio. Hall, what are you saying?" Olaf glanced at the gun again, then at Halvar. "Are you here to kill me too?" Halvar balked. Olaf pissed himself, a dark spot appearing on the bed sheets. The man was genuinely afraid of him. Halvar suddenly felt deep shame, and he lowered the gun, running out of the room and out of the house. No, it can't be, he thought. If Olaf didn't do it, who then? He started the car and drove back home, where he took a bottle of scotch and began drinking. He demanded from his mind to remember all of it, to remember things clearly, without dreams and illusions. His head began hurting, but he didn't take the pills. They would only distract his mind. Halvar emptied the bottle and paced around his room until he collapsed in a corner and wept for his friends. Once again, sleep took over, his body and mind exhausted. This time, the dream picked off as his friends returned with the food. "Where have you been?" Halvar asked. They were gone for nearly 2 hours. Bjarka giggled like a schoolgirl. "We went to get food. They all had red faces and were snickering like teenagers. Have you been smoking weed?" No, Damus said. They snickered some more. Halvar sighed. "We were supposed to practice tonight. You should chill, Detective Oyolf," their lead singer said. "You can't play that guitar anyway." He turned to the other two. "Hey, maybe we should cut his hair. If he can't play, then he's not a true metal fan and shouldn't have long hair." The three laughed, obviously talking gibberish, but Halvar, being frustrated by his stressful job, having to deal with murderers and psychopaths all day long, just wanted to lose himself in the music with his friends. But for some reason, couldn't get the creative juices flowing, and had enough. Something snapped. He grabbed his guitar and began playing. The guys turned to him. "Whoa, look at Hall. He's on fire." Halvar played the solo with fury. He struck every note on the spot. "Yeah, man, that's the thing." Then he came to the hard part. He followed Olaf's instructions and sailed through it, racing to the finale. "Seems Hall's been practicing while we were smoking." Halvar's muscles tensed as he got to where he always failed. He struck the notes, one by one, the pick flying over the strings. But his fury was too much. He broke a string, and the guys giggled. Halvar smacked Bjarka straight in his laughing face with the guitar. The man fell over like a chopped log. Then he hit Damus, who was too stoned to register what was going on. Halvar repeatedly hit the man's head until it cracked, and the guitar strings vibrated from the impact, playing a sinister echo. Oyolf wanted to run away, but Halvar chopped him down by hitting his side first, and then smashing the man's head. Breathing heavily, feeling all his frustration boiling in him, Halvar screamed and headbanged into the guitar's body repeatedly until he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. The dream shifted outside himself, and he could see Olaf stumbling upon the aftermath. Mortified, Halvar jumped up on his feet as the doorbell rang. His fists were clenched, as though he still held the guitar, and he breathed heavily, confused. He was at home. He just woke up from a dream. Someone was at the door. Did I really kill them? Halvar ran a hand through his sweaty hair and walked to the door. He took one deep breath and opened it. It was Sigfrida, with 2 other officers by her side, Halvar's colleagues. "Hall?" she said, her voice painful. "Yeah?" he groaned. Bjarka woke up. "We have some questions. The invisible murder." "Start from the beginning," I sigh, and turn back the needle of time to... What time was it? I almost chuckle. I was so desperately watching the clock tick by, and now I can barely remember what it said. 9 o'clock, I think. I try to remember everything exactly as it was. Any small detail could help. Could be the distant tapping sound, or the odd stain on a shirt, or the scrap of paper that cracks open the case. I know that. I've read the books. It happened around 9 p.m. I was sitting in the security center, doing my job, when a man walked across the camera on the 5th floor. He was just walking down the hallway, and then I take a breath. A thick layer of dust clings to my dark finger as I drag it across the desk, my mind elsewhere. In my head, I'm back in that room with all the screens and the uncomfortable squished chair that I hate. My eyes honed in on the screen, just to my left. "Take your time," coaxes the detective. He looks down at me patiently from across the rickety old desk, and then another man walked into the frame with a knife in his hand. It happened so fast, I didn't see it coming. He stabbed the man in the chest. Another steadying breath. My fingers move to my chest of their own accord, tracing the spot where the knife penetrated. There was blood everywhere. There really was. I didn't know there could be so much from only a small stab wound. Staining his beige polo shirt, saturating the already blood-red carpet, dripping from the shimmering silver blade. What happened then? The security camera went black. I searched the other screens for the man, but he was nowhere. It's like he just what? I chuckle humorlessly at the absurdity of it all. It's like he just disappeared, I mutter. I know how crazy I sound, but still I stare into space, watching the dust particles drift in the glow of what small bit of street light seeps through the broken blinds. This room must not have been used in years. No wonder I've never noticed it before. Is that all? The detective asks. It happened very fast. And it had been fast. So very, very fast. I could have blinked and missed it. What would have happened then? The detective stares almost aggressively into my face, trying to catch a lie, but he won't find one. I would never lie about something so important. Mr. Kessler, is it? Yes, sir. Mr. Kessler, my officers are still searching the building at this time, but at the present moment, There is no evidence that a murder took place. My stomach drops. What? There is nothing unusual at the supposed crime scene you pointed out to us, and the security footage was of no assistance, he says. What? How is that possible? I saw it happen, I say, nearly shouting. It's hard to read him. But if I had to place his furrowed eyebrows and calm manner, I would say there was a twinge of bewilderment and perhaps a touch of curiosity. There is no security footage. It was missing when we got to the security center. You didn't happen to take it, did you? What? Of course not, I yell, indignation filling my bones. Why in hell would I steal the security footage? As far as I know, you were the only one in the security center after when you say the murder took place. His nonchalant manner drives me up the wall. I know he's a policeman, but how could anyone seem to care so little about a murder? Does he not believe me? But it wasn't me. I enunciate each word as if speaking to a child. Why would I get rid of the footage? I do not know, Mr. Kessler. That is exactly the answer I was attempting to obtain from you. The detective pauses thoughtfully. There was nothing at the scene of the crime. No blood, no weapon, no body. Nothing that even seems slightly suspicious. There are no missing persons reports of an elderly man in the city right now. The security footage you claim to have seen is gone. Yes, I know. You're a broken record. I roll my eyes, frustrated. Why do you expect me to believe that a murder took place in this building tonight? He asks, beginning to look annoyed and frustrated. I almost open my mouth to shout, but stop. With a start, I realize that it's a fair question. He doesn't believe me. Why would anyone? It seems so unlikely that a murder could have occurred in the first place, aside from my account. No evidence at all. Nothing except my word. And the detective has no reason to trust that. A new and cold fear rises inside me. Is someone about to get away with murder because I saw it? I mumble, unconvincingly. I only process how pathetic it sounds as it leaves my lips. Mr. Kessler, I am going to write in my report that this was a false alarm. I believe you are tired or somehow otherwise mentally distressed, and you didn't see what you think you saw. I don't know how to react. At first, I'm angry. How could the detective so easily disregard this? How could I possibly make this up? But the rest of me knows he has a point. It was a mind trick, Mr. Kessler. You're wasting my time and the time of all of my colleagues. He raises his voice, and it pulses with the kindling of anger. Go home. Get some sleep. Don't try to pull something like this again. And just be grateful you're not being charged. Now I know how to feel. I didn't try to do this. This is not my fault. And if there's even a chance I'm telling the truth, shouldn't they at least find out? The detective turns and walks toward the door behind him. But as he reaches for the tarnished golden doorknob, He hesitates. "Do you recall what the so-called culprit looked like?" he inquires, turning to face me again, with a look of sheer curiosity, and maybe even a trace of amusement. What's wrong with him? Didn't he just say I imagined it? Why does it matter if you think I just made it up, detective? I say, feeling snarky. I can still charge you, I sigh, attempting to recall the man with the knife. Graying hair, black t-shirt, maybe 5'9". The detective frowns. Really? 5'9"? Yeah. Why? Come on, I look at least 6 feet. The detective chuckles. Oops, accusation. Pounding the tarmac, she bolted down the garden path like an Olympic champion at the start gun. She quickened her pace to an all-out sprint, whilst the springing, graceful steps of 20 miles earlier had long since disappeared. The slapping noise of her flip-flops resonated around the vandalized walls of the housing estate with a clanging echo. She didn't know where she was, nor did she know where she was heading, but she knew she had to get far away from him. Flashing in her eyes, an image of a wedding dress consumed her thoughts. She wanted to tear it and rip it up and throw it at him. Throw it at the man that she could never marry. For God's sake, I'm only 16. I can't get married, she thought. Tears blinded her, and she turned, running as quickly as her long legs could carry her. She bolted down the alley. The pounding noise of her flip-flops reverberated off the walls of the alley, along with a clanging echo that matched her heart, throbbing inside her chest, filling up with acid. Her legs couldn't go on anymore. There she saw it. A barn. It blossomed on the hill amid the grass and the meadow flowers, as if one day it sprung up from some precious seed. I have to go in there, just for a little while, and I will go back home soon, she thought. Opening the door, the smell hit her first as she lugged open the unwieldy, russet-painted door adorned with its tired hinges that creaked like the moaning of cantankerous old men. Collapsing down, her legs couldn't carry her anymore. They were filled with toxins, lost in the rhythmic percussions of her steady breathing. She closed her eyes and imagined herself in college and getting a degree. However, that dream seemed so unrealistic. Invading her steady breaths, a sound of murmuring pervaded the ambiance, and it was coming from outside. Lifting herself up, she carried herself forward and looked out of the cracks in the door. In the middle, a man was begging on his knees. She saw that his face was bearing with the congealed blood, and his clothes were in an utter mess. However, they showed him no mercy. Surrounding him, a tall man was clutching onto his shirt and ripping it apart. In front of him, a much slender man gave him a red eye. His left eye was swollen. He couldn't be seeing a thing out of that, and his face was more purple than brown. She couldn't look. Her eyes widened, and lip trembled. Plummeting onto the floor, the man laid there. He was dead. Calling out from a distance, she could hear a voice telling them to bury him there. Nevertheless, she couldn't see who it was and couldn't seem to recognize this voice. Just like minions, all the men dug holes with shovels and buried the man, leaving no evidence behind. Tears burst forth like water from a dam spilling across her face. The muscle of her chin trembled like a small child. Salty drops fell from her chin, drenching her kurti. Many thoughts pervaded into her mind. She had never seen these people before, even though she lived in a small village in Pakistan. Going towards the way she came, she ran back home. I can't be here anymore, she thought. Howling wildly, the rain lashes the concrete breeze that made her lose control. She ran through a maze of buildings and winding side streets as the sky rumbled, and heavy rain bounced off the cobblestones. A storm smothered the sun, graying the world around her. Drops of rain beat against her skin like hammers. Reaching home, she ran up to her apartment and banged on the door. Getting inside, she ran to her room and closed the door. Overpowering all her emotions, the face of the dead man haunted her, playing the story over and over again. She fell asleep and let her thoughts turn all her dreams into nightmares. Waking up in the morning, she turned on the news and waited. There is a kind of waiting that feels like gentle, onshore breezes kissing salty stones. Nevertheless, this is not what she was feeling today. The news finished, and there was nothing about this missing man. How strange, she thought. Months go on, and there is no sign of this man. Befuddlement infiltrated into her mind. Who was this man? And most importantly, why was he dead? After months of waiting, she saw it. Sitting there on the sofa, she saw it on the news. It was exactly the same man that got killed, and apparently he was missing. So they didn't know that he's dead, she thought. Her mouth pursed and slightly loosed. She looked up at the TV, her eyes fixed, as if this was the only thing that mattered in this world. She had to go, running forward. She had to stop. She wheezes as her burning lungs gasp for air. Her legs feel numb and unsteady, painfully sore. Her throat felt dry, so uncomfortably dry. Clothes' long, blonde-brown hair were clinging onto the tarmac. No different than if she runs through a rainstorm. Unable to go on, she stopped running, gasping for air. But she knew she had to go on. At the corner of the road, there lay walls as thick as the medieval castle, and windows almost as mean. There's no flicker of light within, and the thick wooden doors were closed. Going into the police station, she felt a soft panic growing inside of her. The steps she took were just increasing this amount. It will fade if I back away, but then I have to do this all again another time. It will grow if I let these thoughts swirl into a vortex of stupidity, eating their own tail. Or I can breathe real slow. Let the thoughts leak into the ether and be the real boss of myself, she thought. Approaching the officer, she sat down and told him about what she had seen that night. She told him about the beating and about them burying the dead man. Walking past him, a tall man looked at her, and suddenly she remembered him. It was the same man that clung to his shirt that night. Getting up off her seat, she pointed at the tall man. Sweat trickled down her face and etched marks onto her skin. But she had to do this. Miss, I think you are getting a bit hysterical here. This man works with us, and he would never do such a thing, said the officer. Whist. He examined her up and down. He couldn't understand her. She looked like she was telling the truth. But Hassan couldn't have done this. I do trust him, thought the officer, and he was part of the Commander League, and is soon to get promoted into officer. Telling her to wait in the courtroom, he dismisses her so that he could talk to other members of the department. Just stepping into the courtroom is making her breathing rapid and shallow. She can feel her pulse pounding in her temples. It's a relief to get to the chair. Otherwise, I would have tripped, she thought. Now, only silence lingers in the air. She shivers in the claustrophobic common room and waits for the signal. But a small sigh of anxiety leaps out of her mouth. Tersely, her eyes flicker to the building's whist. She bit her nails to the core, beckoning her to come in. The same officer takes her back into the office. However, they go further in, and it's like nowhere she has actually ever seen before. The fear sits on her like a pillow over her mouth and nose. Doubting her decisions, she tells herself that she had made the right decision. Once again, fear found her. It spoke to her in its cackling voice. It told her legs to go weak, her stomach to lurch, and her heart to ache, as that is what happened to her. She knew she had to keep going, because the truth was just seconds away. Stepping into an exquisite office, she could see the posters hanging and the files stacked up neatly. Getting introduced to the other officers, she sat down, and in the process, she saw the slender man and recognized him immediately, because he was the one who punched the dead man, and instantaneously, she got off her seat. This is the man who punched the dead man. Laughing hysterically, all the officers got up off their seats and surrounded her, just like they did with the dead man. The officer who she met first started talking. I believe that it is you who killed him, said the officer. Isn't that right, Commander Abad? Yes, replied the commander. The voice sounded so familiar in her head, but why she thought? Then it clicked in. He was voice who told them to bury the dead man. Feeling an overwhelming feeling of disgust, she stood up and went towards the commander. "You did all of this," she snarled. "No, I didn't." "Officers, can you please put her behind bars?" "And that is an order," replied the commander. Locking up her hands, the officers grabbed into her shoulders and took her away. Trying to justify her case, she had no luck. The constricted feeling grew inside of her, as if she was strangled by just the air about her. She glances upward to the surface, and her heart rate rises. The voice of caution whispers softly not to rise so fast, but it can't break through the screen for unfiltered rays and fresh air. From the moment she saw it, it repulsed her. These walls cannot hold a prayer, nor can hold a spirit. And I belong here, she thought. Surrounded by 4 white walls, there was nothing else to do but stare at them, to look at the paint that had started to chip off as time passed, or gouged by other prisoners. Anything to pass time, slowly going mad, theorizing absurd meanings from the wall's blank stare. And this is what I would be doing here, she thought, getting thrown into prison. She screamed and shouted like there was no tomorrow, and flung her arms across the cell. I can't stay here, she thought, and not for something I didn't even do. I did not kill the man. It wasn't me, she shouted. But no one heard her. No one ever did. A family man. Chill wind blew down the long asphalt street in Palestine, Texas, picking up sud-like dust and limply turning over dead, dry leaves. The town was tired and quiet. Only a handful of pickups drove leisurely down the street. Jason Lynn, Pennsylvania, sat behind the counter of Americo Bank, shiny shoes propped up in his neighbor's empty chair, white collar unbuttoned, killing floor open on his lap. His head tipped back against the rim of the sleek swivel chair, snoring. He was the kind of man who would go bald early, but not care. The kind of man who'd get a tattoo at 40 to prove he was cool. The kind of man who was actually cool, not because of the tattoo, but because he told good jokes. Pennsylvania owned the Palestine branch of Americo Bank, but did most of the hiring, telling, and counting himself. Cheaper this way, he'd tell Americo's division manager on the phone. But ain't you a family man? The manager would say. The manager was a Wichita Falls man who'd grown up taking out the trash for Americo and worked his way up. Most of his underlings liked him. He had a snaggletooth and uneven sunburns, and went on jogs in the morning in bright orange jumpsuits. Yeah? But this is how you take care of a family. I got the boys to think of. Well, okay, son, you take care. Thanks, bud. Bye. Pennsylvania jerked awake when the clock chimed 8 and smacked his lips. Killing floor slipped off his lap and bounced on the ground. which startled him. He looked over the counter, saw nothing, leaned back, and closed his eyes once more. Outside the bank, on the dry, dusty street, a little banged-up black Toyota parked crooked on the curb. The Toyota sat in the shade cast by the big stone bank, cooling off with little pings and a long sigh. Then the doors unlocked, and 5 teenagers got out. The driver was a tall boy with white hair. The girl in the passenger seat was short and smiling. The 3 others were triplets, all boys with sandy brown hair and identical grins. One of them had a backpack slung over his right shoulder. They looked at each other timidly, almost fearfully, like a group of seamen about to push off from shore and never see home again. One of the triplets said, "You sure you want to do this, Jack?" "Of course, moron. You scared?" The triplet shrugged. "It just... well, Penn's a fun guy. You know he was the one who brought watermelon for the potluck on Thanksgiving?" "Yeah," said his brother. "Where'd he get that?" The 3 brown-haired boys burst into laughter. They knew where he'd gotten it. He'd told them the day before the potluck. Penn was like that. "Shut up," the girl said, shoving one of them off the sidewalk. "Ouch, Callie." "Okay then," Jack said, running a hand through his white hair. "Let's go." The group entered the bank, easing open the glass doors without a whisper. Behind them, dry leaves scraped across the concrete sidewalk noisily, pushed along by the wind, which always seemed to be going nowhere. The 5 of them spread out, looking dead ahead as they pulled hoodies over their heads and scarves or a parent's bandana to cover their mouth and nose. Jack and his crew edged forward over the burnished granite floor. The triplets exchanged worried, excited glances, eyes crinkled up to betray identical, gleeful smiles. Jack and Callie closed in together, shoulders touching like the ranks of Roman soldiers. Jason, Pennsylvania, dozed behind the counter, the calloused fingers of his left hand barely brushing the spine of his book. Jack whispered to Callie, "Where the hell is he?" "Bank's open, right?" "Duh. Maybe he's on a break or something. He'd have left someone behind if he just took a break." Jack leaned over the counter and jumped back as if bitten by a rattlesnake. "There he is," he hissed. Callie forcibly turned one of the triplets around, unzipped his backpack, and removed a gun. "Whoa," the triplet whispered. "Is that thing real?" "Hell no," Callie said, smirking. "It's just a toy, an airsoft gun. Looks real. I took the orange thing off the front of it." The boy looked at his 2 brothers. "Isn't that illegal?" Callie smirked again. "Damn right." They winced and said together, "Stop swearing." She looked like she was about to hit them, thought better of it, and turned around. "Sorry to injure your little church-going ears," she said out the corner of her mouth. Callie walked right up, the 3 boys behind her, like 3 toddlers caught stealing cookies, and slammed the fake gun on the counter. "Wake up, old man," she shouted, and lifted the gun so it pointed at the banker. Pennsylvania jerked awake and pushed his glasses back on his nose. He started to stand, but Callie shouted, "Turn around! Hands up! I have a gun!" His jaw dropped, but he did as she said. "Callie?" he asked. "Callie Roberts?" Jack shouted roughly. "Turn the cameras off right now." Pennsylvania shrugged, his hands still up. "I don't keep them on." "Open the door," one of the boys said in a thin voice. Callie elbowed him sharply, and he cleared his throat and said more firmly, "Open the door." Penn started at his voice, but turned and walked to the door between the bank lobby and behind the counter. Slowly, he pulled a key from his pocket and unlocked the door. He returned the key to his pocket, hands shaking slightly, as the 5 kids ran past him. Their faces were bright underneath their masks, eyes shining, separating the group and fleeing to various half-open deposit boxes. Jack let out a maniacal giggle as he scooped handfuls of mostly counted change into his hoodie pockets and the backpack. "Why don't you lock these boxes up, old man?" he shouted. Penn shook his head. "I trust you guys," he said simply, hands in pockets. "What?" Callie said after an awkward pause. She and Jack laughed, but the triplets' eyes, barely visible over their bandanas, filled with tears. Their bandanas were bright green and stenciled with their dad's initials. JLP. Jack waved his crew out. Callie kept the gun pointed at Penn's head as they backed out of the bank, faces flushed with success. Just before the doors swung shut, Pennsylvania looked straight at the triplets. Their eyes met, 4 pairs of identical eyes. Penn gave them a short, sad smile. When the black Toyota had disappeared down the cold, empty street, Penn sat down again and called the police. "Hi, Rick. I was just robbed. Can you go after him?" "Yeah, a black Toyota, it looked like. I didn't catch the license, but it's the Hoover's car. Jack Hoover. Yeah, Hoover. Yes, Hoover. Thanks. And, oh, Rick, give him the whole speech, will you? My boys were in that group." "No, not a kidnapping. I saw him, though. They know it ain't right. Just make sure they know it. I know they'll do right. I raised them right." "Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate it." Pennsylvania leaned back with a sigh. After a moment, without cleaning up the mess of bills and hanging open deposit doors, he picked up his book again. The Toyota tore down the highway, a trail of dead cottonwood leaves following. Callie drove this time, the needle not dipping below 70, and Jack sat in the back seat. Both grinned hard, masks and hoodies down. "Hey, where's the backpack?" Callie asked as Palestine disappeared behind them, and empty planes surrounded the lonely car. Jack looked around. "I don't know. You don't have it?" Their eyes met in the rearview mirror. Those three, she spat. Those... Ooh. Her hands clenched on the steering wheel. We shouldn't have dropped them off. We should have made them come all the way. They were wimps, she responded. I thought it was good riddance. And Mac hates kids like them buying from him. Her eyes narrowed down the highway. Think they got cold feet? I know so. They're probably gonna tell. What do you want to do? Callie shrugged. We got some in our pockets, right? That's probably enough. Mac doesn't like change, though. He said 20s or nothing. She sighed. Well, damn it, Jack. I don't know. I want to go find them and throttle them. We shouldn't have let them come along. It was an adventure for the kids, Callie said desperately. They wanted to do it, wanted to be the bad boys. Why am I trying to defend them? Jack snickered. They took our money, she shrieked. You know what I think? I bet they're taking it back to their dad. They glared at each other. I want to commit another crime, Callie said after a minute. This time, let's commit murder. Jack laughed, then said, Wait, are you serious? She nodded. They put in life for a murder, not for minors. Yeah, for minors. She shook her head. It'd be worth it. I want to teach those bastards you don't cross your own teammates. A sleek police car sped far behind them, wind tearing through the open windows, light flashing, horns blaring. The driver sat intent behind the wheel as three brown-headed boys talked quickly over each other in the back seat. Just another nameless victim. I just spent the entire evening in the library reading romance books with him, wanting nothing more but to feel his lips against mine in shock. I quickly turned my head to face her. Her black hair was flowing with the wind as she leaned against the bridge, staring out at the ocean. It was beyond beautiful. What? I managed to get out. Yep. It was you the entire time. She turned her head slightly, meeting her alluring hazel eyes with mine. We've been best friends for over 3 years now. We've gone from rivals to classmates to friends to best friends. And that's where it was supposed to stop. Nothing more, nothing less. But the more I got to know her, and the more I got to spend time with her, the faster my heart went. Every single time. And it was only until this very moment I figured out that I wasn't the only one who felt this way. A few minutes before, OMG, they found each other in the end. Now they'll get married and be together forever, she fantasized. It was adorable how oblivious she acted, as if the world was nothing but sunshine and rainbows. You realize they probably won't get together again, right? Stop being such a pessimist, Dill. They will figure out, and when they do, they'll be together again, and bam, true love at its best. I laughed. Together, we just spent 4 hours in the library, reading nothing but romance novels. It was supposed to be enjoyable, but when you have feelings for the girl that you're reading them with, it's hard not to feel a smidge of jealousy. whenever the main characters do anything romantic. Ugh, I wish I could have the perfect love story. There it was. The wish that made my heart blast into smithereens. She had a crush, one that was obviously not me. She always ranted on and on about him, how she liked him, but he didn't like her. I felt the exact same way. Well, maybe if you would just tell me who he is, I could help you, I say, trying not to sound anything but teasing. Even though she's everything I wanted, I still want her to be happy, even if it meant that it wasn't with me. Do you really want to know? She reeled, leaning towards me, trying to get me to back down. I played along. I really do, I teased, leaning closer. I could feel the butterflies forming in my stomach. Okay, how about this? I give you a bunch of hints, and with them, you try to eliminate and figure out who it is. Easy enough. She leaned even closer, waiting for me to accept the challenge. I'm about to have my heart broken. I know it, but I still end up learning closer to the point where our faces are only a few inches apart as I whisper, "Game on." He has brown, messy hair, and his name starts with the letter D. 10 minutes passed. We decided to walk home while playing our game. Over 50 possibilities eliminated. Only 3 left. That leaves Darren, Dwayne, and Dawson, I observe. So close. All right. Here are your final 3 hints. He's a bookworm with amazing grades. He's one of my friends. And he has an interesting past. I process the pieces of information, making 3 crosses, each through someone's name. Wait, everyone's eliminated then. There's no one left. Confusion rises as I go through the hints and the names, seeing if I made a mistake. Nope, there should be one, she softly says. At this point in time, we were already halfway home, stopping right in the middle of a bridge, surrounded by cherry blossom trees. I stop to think as she leans across the railing, facing the ocean. That's impossible, I comment, going through the names for the second time, still lost. Want another hint? Present, I thought. It was me? I'm in utter shock. Has it really been me the entire time? Yeah, She pauses. Suddenly, she spins around, facing me, eyes glassy. It takes a minute to realize she's crying. Hey, what's with the tears? I carefully ask as I slowly reach my hand to touch her soft, warm cheeks. I caress her face, stroking my thumb across her cheek, wiping away her tears. She doesn't respond. She just dips her head so I don't see. I carefully pull her head back up, trying to word what I want to say carefully. Hey, look at me. Slowly, her eyelids open, and her eyes, once again, find mine. I smile, knowing exactly what I want to say. You know, I've liked you since the moment I saw you. I just was too scared to admit it. Scared that you would reject me. Scared that you wouldn't want to be friends anymore. Scared for our relationship. Yet you still pulled up the courage to tell me, even if it might have brought upon rejection or humiliation. You always were the brave one. That got her smiling. Really? She asks, her smile getting bigger and bigger as I nod. Really? Our faces are only 3 inches apart. I look at her once more. She nods. I have the go. Slowly, I close the gap. Time seemed to stop. The only hint that it didn't was the wind blowing cherry blossoms all around us. My heart pounded louder and louder, feeling as if it was going to burst out of my chest. Every time she leaned in, I pressed harder, not wanting to let go. Her lips felt warm and soft, the only sensation I was able to process. The only hint that this was all real was the emptiness felt when she would slowly lean back for air. But once she came back, it felt like a dream once again. Slowly, I brought my hand to her hair and the other to her face as she rested her hands against my chest. Her hair was soft and smelled like coconuts. Slowly, I brought the hand on her face back to my side and to her chest. Softly, I pushed, applying a small bit of pressure. She leaned back and gasped. I'd finally done it. What? She uttered in confusion. She looked down, and the realization downed her. Why? Tears started spilling as she slowly started falling back. I caught her delicate body in one hand, smirking. I'd give it another minute before you're gone. Any last words? My parents are serial killers. Together, they've had over 100 victims. Once they lay their eyes on someone, it's impossible to escape. I was no different. Forced to kill as a child, tortured till I obeyed, became a force of habit as a teenager. I thought you cared, but why? She gasped. You thought you were something special, didn't you? Well, let's make sure we get this right this time. I leaned in closer, enjoying the moment. You are just like the rest of them. I spent 3 years grooming this very moment. 3 years trying to get you to develop feelings for me, only so I could kill you in the most enjoyable way possible. I take a slow, deep breath in, a sense of happiness and satisfaction taking over me. This girl has been the hardest target so far, but I've done it. I drove the knife into her. She gasped, trying her best to stay alive, but it was of no use. The knife was deep enough into her heart to only last her a minute, tops. I gently lay her down and pull the knife out. She softly screams in pain. I get up, take one last look at my best work, smile, and walk away, spinning the knife, covered with blood in my hand. Did you ever love me, Dill? I stop. I only was able to get a few steps away from her before she screams those 6 words. I refuse to turn back, but I can't help but answer. No, you're just another nameless victim. The getaway. The door was waiting for him, already open for a quick entrance into the inconspicuous car. Tony ran as fast as he could, chucking the duffel bags full of money into the back as he more or less dove into the passenger seat. "Drive!" Tony screamed at Jackie. "Drive, goddammit! Drive!" Jackie. Scaletta did not need to be told. Before Tony had even entered the vehicle, he had popped the clutch into drive. Before the passenger door was even closed, he tore down the road like a bat out of hell. Tires screeched like a woman getting murdered as the unnoticeable but powerful car growled down Lexington Street. A traffic light had just turned red as the car ran through it, narrowly avoiding collision with an expensive luxury vehicle. The driver honked loudly, laying on the horn in shock and frustration. But neither Jackie nor Tony D'Amato gave it much notice. They were too fixed on the wailing of police car sirens already going off in the distance, coming after them. "We did it, Jackie!" Tony screamed more than said. "We just robbed Lexington Bank, the cream of the crop. We are gold, my friend." Jackie only nodded in reply. He was too busy focusing on the road, maneuvering cars, hopping onto the sidewalk and the wrong side of the roads to say anything. Tony was shaking and excited as a child who had just scored the game-winning touchdown in a Pee-wee football game. But Jackie was calm and collected. A professional getaway driver, if there ever was one. Just a little bit further, we'll be over state lines. Then after that, on our way to Mexico to live like kings, Jackie. We did. Whoa, look out! A wall of police cruisers was creating a blockade to the entrance of the interstate. Tony grew nervous immediately. Visions of himself and Jackie being torn up by a barrage of Tommy gun fire flashed through his mind. Torn apart by bullets as they did to Bonnie and Clyde. However, Jackie had prepared for this. He knew what to do. "Hold on to something," Jackie said, with the coolness of an ice-cold killer. His face was determined, his eyes focused. "Hold on," Tony shouted. "Hold on to what?" He reacted just in time as Jackie popped the wheels on the shoulder of the entrance, scraping the passenger side of the car against the cement barriers that blocked cars from falling down the steep hill. "Fuck! Fuck! Fuck!" Tony shouted. Sparks flew like crazy fireworks off his side of the vehicle, he noticed with wide eyes. The getaway car had attacked the weak spot of the barricade. Cops dove out of the way in fear as the driver's side of the car clipped a police cruiser in the rear bumper. The collision was hard enough to knock the law enforcement car on its side. Gunshots fired harmlessly as the getaway car merged with the interstate traffic. The road to freedom. We made it. Holy shit, Jackie, you old son of a bitch. We made it, Tony hollered. He was shaking in excitement and fear. A bit of shock had also clouded his mind. He vomited quickly but violently out the window. "Calm down, Paisan," Jackie said calmly. "We aren't free yet. Look behind us." Tony swore when he turned his head to see black and white cop cars following behind. Traffic had pulled over to the sides of the road to allow a path for the police to drive through. Tony had visions of Moses parting the Red Sea upon seeing this. "What do we do?" Tony asked, horrified again. "You let me do my job," Jackie told his childhood friend calmly. "You did your part. Now it's my time to shine." He gunned the accelerator once again. The engine of the car growled like a lion on the attack. Except they were the antelope, and the police, the lions. The rear windshield imploded with a sharp snap as glass fell to the floor of the car. "They're shooting at us," Tony yelped. Another bullet hit the metal of the car's exterior with a loud knocking sound. "Well?" Jackie told Tony, like a father teaching his son a lesson. "Fire back." Tony reached between his legs for the weapon. A Thompson machine gun with a 50-round drum loaded. He racked the first shot into the chamber, aimed intently at the leading cop car, and squeezed the trigger. The gun went off, sounding like a barrage of drums, vibrating off the walls. The car Tony had been aiming at lost control and collided with a semi-truck that was pulled over. One down. How many more to go? Tony asked himself in his mind. "Good job," Jackie said calmly, still focusing on winding through the traffic on the highway. Most drivers had gotten the message and pulled off where they could. But a few stubborn ones kept on going, like nothing was happening. Great. Now we have a cop murder to add to our list, Jackie's mind told him. He shook his head to clear the thought away. The car stank of burnt gunpowder, and a ringing accompanied the ears of both men as Tony loaded another drum into the rifle. "Don't shoot unless they shoot first," Jackie spoke. "Or if they get too close, even still, try aiming for the tires. Don't worry, I don't intend on killing anybody unless I have to," Tony replied. Jackie was thankful for this sentence from his friend. They weren't murderers. There was no one else Jackie would aid robbing a bank with. A bullet shattered a small hole in the windshield. It narrowly missed Jackie's throat. His blood went cold as he felt the ripple of air pass by his skin. A second one ripped another spot through the windshield. This one hitting its mark. "Fuck," Tony yelped, throwing his right hand onto his left arm. Blood stained his fingers. Another barricade stood ahead. This 1-3 rows deep, with paddy wagons and cruisers blocking the interstate. "Tony!" Jackie shouted, momentarily taking his eyes off the path to look at his friend. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," Tony spoke through gritted teeth. "Just took some muscle and skin. Missed the bone. I need you to lay some covering fire when I say," Jackie told him. "What are we gonna do, buddy?" Tony asked. His pain was, at the moment, dulled by the fear that their escape had come to an end. No Mexico. The bullet would have to be extracted from his arm. "Just wait," Jackie replied, his voice getting lower and lower as he repeated, "Wait, wait, wait. Okay, now, fire," Jackie screamed. Tony leaned out the window and sprayed a barrage of bullets out of the end of the machine gun, aiming over the cops' heads. It was enough to scare the uniformed men to duck behind their vehicles as Jackie screamed the car over the grassy area between the lanes of the interstate, straightening on the wrong side as family cruisers and semi-trucks came dangerously close to head-on collisions with them. He rolled back onto the right side of the road once they had cleared the barricade, passing a sign that happily welcomed the two into the next state. "We made it!" Tony shouted. "Holy Christ, Jackie! You did it! We are clear! Bravo, paisano!" They had made it into the next state. Tomorrow morning, they would ditch the vehicle and get into another one to make the drive into Mexico. They were not safe yet. There was still the worry of a nationwide manhunt or getting stopped at the border. But for now, Jackie Scaletta and Tony D'Amato were safe. They continued down the interstate. Citizens, death. She trembled uncontrollably as he pushed the muzzle into her forehead. Nobody moves or makes a sound. Any heroics, bullets will start flying. As you can probably tell, this is a bank heist. Cooperate, and I'll spare you all your lives. Please don't kill me. I'll take you to the vault right now. Shut it. I decide when we go, he replied as he jarred her head back with the barrel. The hostages looked on in slouched postures, with furrowed brows and gaping mouths, wondering if the gun's magazine was loaded or not. For the bank manager's sake, they hoped it wasn't, and that he was pretending to have a loaded gun, because they believed this sort of heist was to scare people into submission with no real intention to harm them. After all, it was only one guy, not a group of robbers. "Hey, mister, my wife's so scared, her water has just broken," exclaimed a hostage. "We need medics, quickly." "I said no heroics," he exclaimed, striking the butt of the gun to the bank manager's temple. She fell in a heap, motionless. "Now look at what you've made me do." "I mean it, people. Don't try my patience, or one by one, it'll be you lot getting the bullet. Are you crazy? My wife is in pain. She thinks the baby is in the wrong position. We need a doctor now." He sighed and approached the pregnant woman and knelt by her side. She was shaking and sweating uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry about this, but I can't have you or your husband messing this up. There's $20 million in the vault, and I want some of it, no matter what the cost. Please, just take the money and go quickly. We'll say nothing to the police," replied the woman. The bank manager opened her eyes. She sat up, propping her back against the wall. All she heard was 2 shots fired, followed by a cacophony of screams and chaos. He fired another shot to the ceiling, and the room fell silent. Order was restored. Right, you lot, clean the blood up, and then drag the pregnant woman and her husband over to the far corner, he demanded. Are you fucking crazy, man? You've killed an unborn baby and the mother and father, exclaimed another hostage. In this game, there's always collateral damage. Now shut it, he said, training the Glock on him. He glanced through a window. The street outside Citizen Bank was as normal as he'd expected. So far, 2 minutes had passed since he'd entered the bank. There was another 5 minutes before the NYPD would have the building surrounded. So far, so good. With the entrance door locked, nobody had approached or tried to enter the bank. Still partially dazed, the bank manager attempted to stand. She stumbled, but he soon skittered back to her and pushed her to the floor. Stay down until I say otherwise, got it? He slid the rucksack from his back and pulled out a large bag of cable ties and tied her hands behind her back. Then he tied her legs, leaving enough movement for her to walk, but not run. With 2 less hostages to not worry about, he made quick time in using more ties to bound the other 8 hostages. Okay, people, if I hear the slightest of sounds or sense the smallest of movements, one of you will be joining those bodies over there. He hauled the bank manager to her feet and pushed her in front to lead the way to the vault. She stumbled and fell to her knees with a hard thud. He grabbed her hair and wrenched her back to her feet. She screamed, and the hostages felt her pain. In retaliation, she spun and spat in his face. She quickly felt the back of his hand make contact with her cheekbone. It sent her tumbling for a second time, but she didn't get up. He didn't let her. Instead, he grabbed her hair and dragged her to the vault. The hostages winced, imagining her discomfort as her legs flailed in a futile attempt to stall him. Now that he's down in the vault, we have to do something, whispered a hostage. He looked mid-30s, with a physique of a guy that worships a gym. Are you out of your fucking mind, sir? You heard what the guy said, right? If you can cut me loose, I can take him. I'm ex-military. Apprehension is my forte. I've got a small knife in my back pocket. Can you reach it? You're gonna get us all killed trying to be the hero. NYPD will be here soon. They'll take him out. Only if someone has activated the alarm. There were moments of silence. He was waiting for a reply that never came. I thought not, but the guy keeps checking his watch, and he thinks they're on their way. I can activate the alarm so the cops know, and then I'll take him out. No, man, you're not hearing me. I can't let you do this. I've got a wife and kids. He'll shoot us all. What do the rest of you think? Are you with me? The rest of the hostages didn't respond. You try anything, man. I'll take you down myself. Just trust me, man. It's worth a try, replied a hostage. He's trained. He knows what he's doing. The locks released. He turned the catch, and the door to the vault swung open. "What the fuck?" he said, staring into the barrel of a Glock 10. "You didn't tell me there was security in the vault," he said to the manager. She connected with his gaze and dropped her shoulders. "I ain't security," replied the guy standing at the entrance of the vault. "Stop what you're doing, and nobody else has to get hurt." It was a stalemate situation. Both guys had their guns trained at each other, fingers twitching at the triggers, and then, bang, the guy in the entrance to the vault fell. He was soon surrounded by a pool of his own blood. He began to load as much cash as he could into the 2 large holdalls by his side. He could hardly zip them up, but to his estimation, he had at least $600,000 in each. Way less than what he wanted, but enough to start up somewhere new. With one bag on his back and the other in his left hand, he grabbed her hair with his right and dragged her back to the main foyer, where he noticed one of the hostages was missing. From out of nowhere, the hostage charged toward him, thigh and drived him to the floor, like the New York Giants were playing out in front of them. They tussled about, but the hostage found himself being overpowered and had the barrel of the Glock shoved in his mouth. Bang! All the remaining hostages jump out of their skins as blood and bits of brain matter splattered all over them. The hostage lay there in a bloody, gory mess that was too much for most of them to look. "Hey, mister," we tried to tell him it was a stupid idea, but he didn't listen, replied one of the hostages. "He's paid with his life for his insubordination." He checked his watch, and 4 minutes had passed. "Time to check out. The manager is coming with me. Inform the police I have her as my hostage, and any attempt to intercept me, and she gets the bullet, right?" Exiting the Citizen Bank, he threw the holdalls in the trunk of his General Lee, while the bank manager got into the passenger side. He put the pedal to the metal and sped his way along Valley Stream. There were no police in sight. Perhaps the NYPD had other emergencies, he thought. He took a left and followed the sign that was heading for Brooklyn. "Okay, Max, you can stop calling me the bank manager now," said Elizabeth. "And you didn't have to be so rough on me. It had to look like you were another hostage. I just hope when you shot that guy in the vault, you were obscured from the cameras so it looked like me. But how did we miss that guy? I think I did good shooting him, but too many mistakes were made this time. I should have accounted for the guy in the vault." "Yeah, but you dealt with him pretty quick. From how we played it out, the cops will think you were innocent. But what about the hostage that thigh and drived you? If you hadn't have got the better of him, we wouldn't be here now. We've got enough money, and I don't have to work in a shitty bank anymore." He took another left and entered on to Interstate 678. He leant over to the passenger seat. Their lips engage. "New life. Here we come," she said.